My name is Judge Brendan Murphy. I serve as the Chief Magistrate here in Cobb County. I'm going to remove my mask. My glasses get a little fogged up, and I'm far enough away from everybody that that's a safe thing to do. We welcome you and bring greetings to you this afternoon, and we're very glad that you're able to join us either here in person or via this WebEx or YouTube streaming. We thank Cobb County government for making these resources available so that we can share them with you. I'd like to give a brief overview of what we're going to discuss today. The first thing we're going to discuss is legal representation options for folks that may be looking for representation in a landlord-tenant case. We're going to have a representative from Atlanta Legal Aid make a brief presentation. And then we're going to have a brief presentation from STAR-C, which is the nonprofit organization that Cobb County government has selected and awarded a $1.5 million grant for rental assistance to be administered during this COVID-19 pandemic. So first, I would like to welcome to Magistrate Court, I'd like to welcome Attorney Ellen Dorsey. Attorney Dorsey is a staff attorney with Cobb Legal Aid, a subsidiary of Atlanta Legal Aid. She has some brochures available here in the courtroom, and she's going to share some information about as landlord-tenant court begins this summer, as it resumes this summer, how you can get represented if you receive information about an eviction. So with that, I'd like to welcome Attorney Ellen Dorsey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Judge Murphy stated, I am Ellen Dorsey, a staff attorney here at Cobb Legal Aid. Cobb Legal Aid is a nonprofit law firm that offers free legal services. The eligibility requirement is several factors: household income and other factors. The types of cases we handle is housing, landlord-tenant, consumer, education, estate. And also you can reach us online at www.atlantalegalaid.org, or you can call us at 770-528-2565 Monday through Thursday, 9 to 12 p.m. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Dorsey. And I know that was a lot of contact information, and it sometimes can be hard in these video conference formats. Here at the Magistrate Court, we are committed to everybody being represented that can possibly be represented. And so we will be putting Atlanta Legal Aid's contact information on our website, on our social media platforms, and also any individual that has served a landlord-tenant a pleading during this COVID-19 time will be receiving a supplemental notice from the court, which includes contact information for Cobb Legal Aid so that folks can attempt to get representation before they come here to court for their landlord-tenant action. So as I've indicated when we first started, what brings us all here is the Cobb County Board of Commissioners' decision to appropriate $1.5 million of the CARES Act funding that the county received for eviction relief. The way the Board of Commissioners has elected to appropriate that funds was by selecting a grantee, and that grantee is STAR-C. And we have Ms. Audria Reese from STAR-C, and she's going to explain a little bit about their program, who's eligible for their program, and how the program intakes new clients and gets them signed up for this rental assistance that Cobb County has appropriated. Their system has various requirements, and Ms. Reese is going to go through those requirements. If you have questions about those requirements, this is the program that Cobb County has appropriated. The Magistrate Court's function is to help implement that program. And the folks that are most at risk for eviction right now are folks with cases filed in the Magistrate Court. So once the Cobb County Board of Commissioners appropriated these funds, we went ahead and reached out to Cobb Legal Aid, reached out to STAR-C, so that we could make sure to assist in efficiently and fairly releasing these funds. If you have questions about STAR-C's policies or baseline requirements, those could be directed to your local Board of Commissioners member or the chairman, so that you could express information and feedback on the program and suggestions for possible additional programs, because those are legislative decisions, not judicial decisions. So with that, Ms. Reese is going to present a PowerPoint to you, and we're going to bring up Ms. Reese. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Judge Murphy. As he said, I'm Audria Reese. I am the Executive Director of STAR-C. and I'm very glad to be here with you all today to explain how our eviction relief fund will work here in Cobb County. As he said, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners has awarded Star C $1.5 million to provide eviction relief here in Cobb County. The funding came from the CARES Act, which is federal money that the federal government dispersed all across this country to help different municipalities address the COVID crisis. And Star C was awarded about $1.5 million of that. That accounts for about 1.2% of the overall funding that the Cobb County Commission received, and this was designated for eviction relief. As you all know, evictions are a huge part of the crisis that's going on in all of our communities right now, with so many people being out of work or either having to stay home because their kids are out of school or at this point can't be in summer camp and they need some at-home supervision. So Star C has come along to offer our program to help along with that. So to tell you about Star C, we call ourselves an education model with an affordable housing solution. And basically we partner with affordable housing communities that's not necessarily subsidized or housing projects, but just for people making about an average salary in Atlanta, across the metro Atlanta region, they could afford to live there, which means that generally speaking, your rent for a 2-bedroom would not be more than about $1,650 a month. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're working to reduce transiency in apartment communities. We believe that if families can be stabilized in their apartment communities, the children will be stabilized in their schools, and in that way, the children will do better academically and the schools will do better academically. We found that when children move, every time they move, they lose 3 months of learning. So our core programming has always been focused on stopping that turnover at the apartment and in turn, stopping the turnover at the local school. Our programs include, on the normal times, a free on-site after-school program. That means if you live in one of the apartment communities that has signed up to host our programs and the landlords pay for 50% of that cost, Star C pays the other half. If you live in one of those communities, you can get free on-site after-school program for elementary age children where they can get assistance, tutoring, social emotional learning, snack, and supervision from the hours of 2 to about 6 before you might get home from work, so they don't have to be latchkey kids. And if they need help with their schoolwork beyond what parents can provide, Star C can help with that. We also offer free on-site summer camp, wellness initiatives, food security programs, and now eviction relief. As you are aware, our on-site after-school programs and summer camps have not been functioning because of the COVID crisis, but we do have food security programs functioning in our various communities. The Eviction Relief Fund specifically is our newest program. It's been rolled out all across Metro Atlanta, across the 29-county region. It was launched in April of 2020, and we began raising money for that. And it primarily assists with COVID hardships, but it will be ongoing. So if there are people out there in Cobb County, if you have a COVID hardship, you qualify for this. But if you have other hardship as well, we may be able to access other funding to help you. Our fund will be ongoing. So it's the money that we got from Cobb is specifically for COVID, and there is a deadline on it of December 30th, 2020. But the Eviction Relief Fund will be extended beyond that across Metro Atlanta because evictions, unfortunately, have been an ongoing issue in our community. Our funding partners obviously have been the Cobb County Commission, the United Way of Greater Atlanta, private foundations, and individual donors. To date, 44 landlords across Metro Atlanta have signed up, and when I say across Metro Atlanta, I mean Spalding County, Gwinnett, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, Douglas County, all across the Metro Atlanta region. There are a total of over 9,000 units that have been registered for our program. Out of our 44 properties, 10 of those are in Cobb, which means about 2,700 of those units are in Cobb County. So far, we have been able to help over 60 families to stay in their homes. We have issued $36,000 in assistance payments, and 56% of the money that we have spent so far in our fund have been from here in Cobb County. This money has been dispersed ever since the Cobb County Commission approved the program for funding, but actually in advance of us receiving the money. So we've been helping out Cobb County from day one with our fund, and we just received part of the money from Cobb County. So Cobb County has been a part of this. It was considered a part of this when we envisioned the program, and we're glad to be doing what we can to help the families. We do have one property in Cobb County that is registered to participate in our after-school program, just so you guys will know about that. That's Stratford Ridge Apartments. That's off of Delk Road. Under normal circumstance, we have a free on-site apartment community there, and it has really made an impact in the residents' lives there and helped them be stronger in their neighborhoods, and has helped them be more willing to even renew their leases there. So to discuss how you can qualify for our program, as I mentioned before, we partner with landlords who provide affordable housing communities. And generally speaking, for a 2-bedroom, you must be able to rent that for less than $16.50 a month. And then those communities must be located near high-need schools. As I said, Star C's goal is to help improve schools, so we target schools that are ranked in the bottom third of their statewide cohort, and there are about 19 of those schools located in Cobb County. So that's basically what the pre-qualification is. As far as the tenants go, for this Cobb County funding, you must be experiencing a COVID-related hardship, and you do need to demonstrate and explain what that hardship is. In those cases, you can receive up to 70% of your past due rent for up to 2 months at a maximum of $3,200. So if your rent is $1,000 a month, you're 2 months behind, you can get 70% of that. And that's basically how that works. The landlords have to sign up for our program, and then they pre-screen the applications, and I'll give you a bit more of detail about that. Another aspect of our program in Cobb County is an extended stay transition program, which means that for people who are living in extended stay hotels, Star C will help them to transition into an apartment of their own. They have to be able to qualify for that apartment on their own, but Star C will cover the first month of rent and the security deposit for a maximum of about $3,000. And again, those properties would need to be affordable and near the schools that we're targeting. As far as how the actual eviction assistance program works, Star C is a financial resource to help the residents to remain in their homes. Our goal, even though I'm standing here in the magistrate court right now, is to keep people out of court, to keep people from even coming here, to keep the landlord from even filing evictions. So all of our work so far has been to keep people out of court, to assist them with remaining as current on their rent as they can, because our goal is to keep people in their homes. When we get to court, is to then let the landlords and the tenants know, if you live at a qualifying property, that here's this extra option that you can use to consider if you're willing to negotiate with each other to try to stay in your homes. Star C doesn't negotiate. We don't tell the tenants what to do. We don't tell the landlords what to do. But if you can work out something between yourselves and narrow it down to 2 months of assistance that's needed, where you may have been impacted by COVID, then that's where we can come in and be a part of that. We can cover about 70% on a 2-month delinquency. The tenant does need to be able to pay something, about 20% of your delinquency, and the landlord waives 10% of outstanding rent plus fees and penalties. Now again, that's before you get here. Once you get to court, the landlord may need to waive a little bit more, the tenant may need to pay a little bit more, but that's how our overall framework works as far as what we can do here. And then once an agreement has been reached, the tenant pays their portion, and then Star C pays our portion, and we pay directly to the landlord. And again, the goal is to keep the tenant in their homes. It's not to be here and help the tenant clear their balance so they can just move somewhere else. It's for you to stay in the unit that you're living in right now. So again, how it works during court, we'll be on hand to offer our resources here. So we'll be out in the lobby here at court, maybe sitting quietly here in the courtroom, to let landlords know, to let tenants know what resources we can provide. We'll have some very easy documents for you to sign if you want to participate. But again, we will not be drafting any legal documents. We won't be negotiating. But to the extent that the landlord and tenant can come to agreement, and that Star C's participation can help facilitate that process, we really want to be a part of it. And we will sign as a part of the settlement agreement, so it's documented what needs to happen. This is how much the tenant will pay, this is how much Star C will pay, and this is how much the landlord will waive. All designed to help keep tenants in their homes. If you need other information, you can go out to our website, star-c.org, and there you can see a list of properties in Cobb County that have already signed up for our program. You can also get more information about how our program works. You can call us at 404-698-3781 or email hello@starc.org. And also, if you visit our website and you don't see a property that you live at or that you know someone who lives there, you can give them our information and we can reach out to that landlord, or you can tell that landlord to reach out to us and we can see if they can sign up, outside. So our property list is not locked. We're constantly signing up more and more properties every week, and we're very, very interested in partnering with landlords, again, to keep them out of court. But once you get here, we want to do what we can to help stop the eviction even at this point.
I wanted to recognize some special guests this afternoon that have joined us either in person or on the call, starting with our District 4 Commissioner, Commissioner Lisa Cupid. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the vision and leadership from the board in implementing this program and making this funding available. I also see Attorney Greg Shenton has joined us on the call. Thank you, sir. And also Community Advocate Monica Delancey from the We Thrive in Riverside organization has joined. She's raised her hand, so it looks like Ms. Delancey may have a question. And so if Ms. Delancey's unmuted, you could just speak the question, Ms. Delancey, and we should be able to hear you.
No, I just want to say thank you for joining Judge Murphy. Thank you for the presentation, Star C. And thank you for Commissioner Cupid and Board of Commissioners for recognizing that rental assistance very much needed prior to March this year. So any questions, and I think this covered, because I know we've been talking offline. I've been talking with Ms. Reed. I know a few properties have signed up the Riverside community because of partnership, and some other people on this call because I sent the link out. So thank you to you, Ms. Judge Murphy, and Mrs. Phillips for getting the link out. Thank you again.
So even though you didn't have an extra question, Monica, I do want to play off something that you had just said. She said that she knows that people need help pre-COVID. And so I just want to explain to you how that might work. We're also having a similar partnership with the Fulton County Magistrate Court, and we were down in the Fulton County Court on Monday and Tuesday of this week. All of those evictions that they were considering, and that was a landlord-tenant mediation process there, but all of the evictions that were going through that process had been filed before March, so January, February, around that time frame. So obviously, at this point, if the tenants haven't paid rent this whole time, they're way more than 2 months behind, and their balance is way more than any maximum that we could consider. But we were able to help one resident there to remain in their home. They were able to negotiate an agreement with their landlord basically to cover the amounts that were above what we could offer. They came up with an amount, maybe the tenant paid $1,500, Star C paid $1,500, and then the landlord waived the rest. Again, that was what they worked out, and they factored in the assistance that we could provide within our parameters. So when we get started here, the evictions will have been filed before COVID started. But if the tenant was ultimately impacted by COVID so that it falls within our 2-month guideline and COVID hardship, that's where we can still come in, even though these evictions predate the COVID crisis.
So that'll be a good segue into some additional information about how we're going to rephase up. As you know, in the course of this pandemic, there have been several statewide judicial emergency orders entered. The first being on March 14th of this year. The Magistrate Court of Cobb County has never closed. This is a court that is open 24 hours a day, and we have never closed. During the first portion of the pandemic, we have been focused on criminal matters because criminal matters must continue no matter what. We must consider arrest warrants, we must consider search warrants, we certainly must consider bond hearings to make sure that people have an opportunity to bond out of custody if it is appropriate for them to do so. We recognize that the pandemic is not over. We are all here together wearing masks. The pandemic continues. It's important to continue following all public health guidance. And we are following that, and we're following the leadership of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The current judicial emergency order expires on July 12th. That order reinstates deadlines for litigants as of July 14th. So they're really wanting courts to resume civil proceedings, including landlord-tenant. Some courts, not in Cobb County, have resumed eviction hearings already based on their power under the order to enter individual orders in individual cases to compel people to come to court. Our reading of the order and our reading of the public health situation in Cobb County, we have not elected to do that. We are going to wait for the emergency to expire before we resume. What will resume shortly, so that people are not surprised, and I'll tell you why it's going to happen like this, service of filed eviction actions will begin during the month of June and early July. The reason to go ahead and restart service, that's service of the new filing by the sheriff's office and by private process servers, is so that tenants have the maximum ability to file an answer. It's critical that parties file an answer when an eviction action is filed so that that party can have his or her day in court. If we were to wait to resume service until the judicial emergency expires, then everybody would have to come and answer those eviction actions within the same 7-day period. So those folks that did not use our online functionality to file their answer online, and we understand that there is an unwaivable $4 fee. We've tried to work with our vendor and it cannot be waived. If people want to avoid that $4 fee, they have to physically come into court to provide the answer. We don't want hundreds and over 1,000 people to have to come here. It would not be safe to do that in the same 7-day period. So what we're doing is we are going to resume service shortly, and that way, while we resume service, we're also going to enter orders to make it clear when your answer is due. Because the judicial emergency order requires some legal interpretation that honestly even judges and attorneys are having discussions about statewide, and it's a lot for folks to be able to figure out when their answer is due. So instead of requiring tenants to figure out when it's due, we're going to clearly identify on the notice that is sent to tenants when their answer is due. If there was tolling required by the Chief Justice's order, we're going to slightly extend the answer deadline so that all deadlines will be July 21st. So for those advocates in the community that are on the line, July 21st is going to be the key date that anyone who was served with an eviction immediately before March 13th or during the pandemic, July 21st is the date when they have to answer by in order to get their day in court. We are not going to resume hearings on landlord-tenant until mid-July. Shortly we will publish our calendar, and hearings will resume after the expiration of the emergency order in mid-July. We will be starting with those eviction cases, as Ms. Reese indicated, that were filed, answered, and ready for a hearing, and in fact scheduled for a hearing, and then canceled. So we will begin with the oldest cases and work our way through the calendar. It's very important, especially for those community advocates that are familiar with the landlord-tenant calendar. We are not going to be having 100+ person calendars here in the courthouse. That cannot be accommodated safely with social distancing. So what we are going to do is have smaller calendars and staggered calendars so that folks will not have to all show up at 9 o'clock, but rather their notice will tell them to either show up at 9 o'clock, 10:30, 1:30, or 3 o'clock, or any specific time. And there'll be small staggered calendars so that, like today, we can be safely spaced out in the courtroom. We would ask and remind people that a mask, of course I'm not wearing it now as I'm speaking, but a mask is required for entry to the courthouse. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Anything that can cover your face will do the trick. And then when it is your turn for your day in court, you'll be able to remove that mask so that you can be clearly seen and heard when you are in front of the judge, in front of the court. So those smaller calendars with social distancing in place. Also, kind of as I mentioned at the beginning, the policy decisions, legislative decisions about how funds are appropriated and how programs are run are beyond the scope of the court. The court is a neutral party that is here to fairly, honestly, efficiently hear the case and make a decision. And so our role is to partner with the partners that have been selected to make sure that that funding gets to the people that need it. And so we've partnered with Star C to make court resources and court space available to them, and they have committed to the court, which we greatly appreciate, that they will have staff on site. So the goal, as Ms. Reese said, is that tenants will either represent themselves, be represented by a legal aid attorney, and then Star C will be there to give a final approval to the settlement agreement reached between the tenant and the landlord or the landlord's attorney. And so all of that can happen in real time so that when the parties walk away from their hearing date, they have a clear understanding of each party's obligation and deadline under that obligation. And each party will have to meet their obligation before Star C releases their funding directly to the landlord. Again, I would reiterate Cobb Legal Aid's contact information, and we will include that on the supplemental notices that will be going out with service and with hearing date notices. But if you're on the line now and want to take it down, their phone number is 770-528-2565. And their process works best if you can get signed up with legal aid as soon as possible. So if you've already been informed by your landlord that they have filed an action, but it hasn't been served yet because we suspended service during the judicial emergency, or you otherwise know an action's coming, call legal aid now, because the more they know about you and your case, the more likely they are to represent you, and then the better able they will be to represent you when the hearing comes around. I think that covers all the basic information about how the calendars will restart. We'll be putting out an updated, early in the process, we put out a frequently asked questions on our website, shared it on social media. We'll be putting out an updated frequently asked questions with much of the information that I just covered, and so that can be widely shared so that everybody understands the process. We understand that this is a very tough time for our community. And at the end of the day, we are trying to work with our community advocates, with our partners, with our tenants, and with our landlords to resume a task that is not a fun task. The fun task, we got to resume weddings. It was wonderful. We've been here celebrating with folks starting their life together. We know that the next phase of this pandemic is going to be stressful, and it's been stressful on some landlords already, and it's about to be stressful on some tenants. But our commitment to you, as always, is to efficiently hear you, to listen with open ears to everything that each party has to say so that the judge can ultimately make an informed decision after a full hearing has been heard. And our commitment further is to partner with every resource available in this community to help soften that blow that we realize is significant to so many families. And so with that, I thank you so much, Ms. Reese. I thank you so much, Attorney Dorsey, for being here, for our partners from Cobb County for making this available. This video will be made available through Cobb County government channels, and then we will share much of this information on our website and through our social media challenges. I'm Chief Magistrate Judge Brendan Murphy, and I appreciate your time and your commitment to our community. Thank you.